Hi, Leadership West. This is Tracey Beal. I am the founder and CEO of School Connect and the proud member of Class 25. And Michelle asked me to share a little bit of a leadership story, especially that kind of surrounds community and emotional support. And so I wanted to tell a quick story about something that just happened to me a few weeks ago. My husband and I own a second home up in Sacramento, California, and there was a massive storm. It was more rain in 24 hours than they had since 1835. So it was huge. And so at 4 a.m, I woke up hearing all that noise. I walked through our house, checking things out, and saw water pouring through our guest room window. So I woke up my husband and we got outside. It was dark. It was pouring rain. It was super high winds. We had to get up on an extension ladder and try to get a tarp over the top of the window. We just made that after about an hour. It took us that long to do it. We get dried off, get in the house, get something hot to drink, and all the power goes out. Turns out it's going to be out for an entire 24 hours. And so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We grab some of the food from our refrigerator and go to our son and daughter-in-law's house and get dried off. And we come home and I walk into the bedroom and my bedroom is flooded. It's just like I'm walking in water. And I look out the window and the water has come up the level of the yard over the concrete, now going into our room. And I just realized, oh my gosh, I am stuck. I've got one flashlight, 2 buckets, and 5 towels, and that's not going to be enough. And so I sent a text to the neighborhood text group. And I'm like, hey, I hate to say this, but we're flooding. And if you have an extra bucket or flashlight or towel, we could sure use it. So who shows up at our door immediately? Our next door neighbor, who's an amazing teacher named Kendra. She's like, okay, I can't get into my garage because we don't have power either, but we've got to get a wet and dry vac. We need to figure out how we can stop the water from going in. Well, right after that, my neighbor across the street, this young couple who just moved in, as a matter of fact, Mel and Brennan, we had invited over for dinner that night to get to know them. So that's we really don't know them yet, but they come to our house and we're all standing there. My son comes too. We're all looking at the problem. We're trying to figure out, how do you get water down from the outside? How do you get water away from the inside? This seems like an impossible task. But the brilliance of minds all thinking together started to work. And so one of them said, I'll go get a wet and dry vac and some sandbags at Home Depot. And another one said, well, let's go get a sump pump. And so some of them took off. And then my son and I were trying to just get water, out of our bedroom as well as out of the yard. And so then another neighbor showed up. And she started bucketing. She started taking buckets of water from the yard, trying to get the water level down so she would take it to the front of the street. Well, I was helping her do that. And I saw that after a few minutes, she just walked off down the street. And I was thinking, well, I don't blame you. This is the worst circumstance ever. And so I can imagine she thought this is hopeless. Why am I doing this? But no, she was not doing that. She ended up coming back and she said, all these neighbors are together having hot toddies in one of their houses. And so she went over there to them and said, David and Tracy's house is flooding, so please come over and help. So 8 more people came back. And while our other neighbors were out trying to get the things that we needed to try to fight this, all these other neighbors came and we created a bucket line from way in the back of our yard all the way to the front street. And by bucketing, standing in water, pouring rain, mud everywhere, these neighbors got the water level below the concrete. And at the same time, then somebody else was able to we had to attach extension cords across the street to somebody else's house who had power so that we could get the wet and dry vac to work. But we got the water out of the room. We got the water below the level of the concrete just in time for us to get the sump pump so we could regularly get that water out of that area. So now it's been 3 hours, lots of wet, cold. Our neighbors are heading back to their homes. And my husband is so concerned. He's not going to go anywhere. He's going to stay at this house to fight this storm. But my son says, hey, you guys should be coming over to our house and have a little bit of, dry food, etc. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I think I need to do that. And so I get in my car, and as I'm driving down the street, the pouring rain, the branches are falling, it's flooding, and I get a text, and it's from that young couple across the street who we were going to have give them dinner. They say to us, I'm inviting you guys over for dinner. We have warm food right now. Come on over. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, my husband will walk across the street. What am I doing trying to drive 5 miles away in this massive storm? We should just go over and have dinner with Mel and Brennan. So I go back and I grab my husband and we go to their house and we're having the best time. And then another wonderful neighbor texts me and she says, I've got all these dry towels for you now. Can I bring them to your house? And I said, well, that's awesome, but we're having dinner with Mel and Brennan. So instead, she brought them to Mel and Brennan's house, and she included like 4 brownies with strawberries on them so that we could all enjoy that. And it was an incredible experience. It was so, so, so hard. But by the engagement of all these neighbors, I learned a lot about leadership. And so here are my lessons that I learned. The first one was when that storm was coming and I didn't have what I needed to ask for help. And so often I'm just so focused on how do I solve this problem, I don't look up and think somebody else is brilliant and has more resources than I have. And so ask for help. The second thing is groupthink is so much more intelligent than just me and my husband trying to figure out how we were going to solve this problem. We actually used the group intelligence, and that was powerful. And then you need to have a neighbor like our little neighbor Jerry, who walked down the street and got the neighbors and brought them with her to be able to actually impact the scenario. If we had not had that whole group of people working, there's no way we would have gotten the water below the concrete level. You need a galvanizer for sure. And then receive love. Like, oh my gosh, I felt guilty. I felt embarrassed that here were people giving us dry towels and brownies and food and taking care of us. And yet, when we did receive that love and that care of that community, it transformed the experience of the flood into something, even though it was really hard, still incredibly beautiful. And as I sent text messages to each one of those neighbors who helped us, thanking them very specifically for what they had done, together they said to each other on that text message stream, oh my gosh, our neighborhood is amazing. We work together. We loved getting to do this. And it was like shocking and amazing to me when I realized that by asking for help, by allowing them to use all their gifts and talents and resources and express care, by receiving all of that, crazily enough, we were actually empowering them as a community, as a neighborhood. And so, boy, I hope that story encourages you. All of us are probably facing some real challenges still right now. And man, these elements of leadership really impacted my life. And I'm happy to get to share that story with you.